All right, so this is day three. Day three has been quite interesting. It's been very chill, but it feels like kind of like a flow, you know. So something very interesting happened to me today. So I was actually enlightened to challenge myself to eat foods without seasoning them. So I'm just kind of like, I wonder what that is about. But I think it has a lot to do with me appreciating my food, you know. Um, so when I was a vegan, I felt like, in being a vegan, like your taste buds have to adapt, you know, from eating meat or just, like certain food, period. Okay. So, um, I really enjoyed vegan cuisines because it kind of forced you to really experience your food. So, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not willing to go back to being a vegan. And, this has come up like in the last past 3 years. It has come up. I don't know if it's God talking to me, but I have pretty much made it very clear, I'm not going back to being a vegan. The closest thing that I will do is pescatarian, but then again, it's kind of like being a pescatarian. I mean, the seafood just goes straight through me, but seafood is very important because it has a lot of iron. And considering that I deal with a lot of issues with iron, but oh my goodness, it's like as soon as I take it in is as soon as it's coming out. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, can I have a moment to breathe? Okay. All right. So, today is actually a beautiful day. It's like 80 degrees outside. And, on nice days, I usually try to, get outside, make sure that I get some air. Considering that we're on this journey, I feel like I should, I get out to take the dog out. But for the most part, well, for one, I've been dealing with a lot of spill work. You know, it's crazy. You know, um, I couldn't go outside at all at one point in time because I said, you know what, somebody wants me to get into a car accident. You know, somebody wants me to get into a car accident. It was crazy. It was so much going on with the cars and the road and the street. And when I realized that, I said, you know what? I'm just gonna stay in the house and wait till it's all over because this is ridiculous. You know. Um, so whenever I do go outside, sometimes I don't travel as far. Sometimes when I go out, I can feel if it's okay, and I can feel if it's not okay. You know, but I mean, really, this is ridiculous. I've had death spells sent to me. Somebody tried to put a death spell on, me and my sisters. Shit's crazy. it's so unnatural, you know. The way to be able to identify it, it's kind of like it's just so unnatural. And I'm just like, it's spell work. Whenever it feels unnatural to me, I know it's spell work. But anyway, this is craziness. But so I just been kind of sitting here, and I've got these like little red potatoes, and I have my Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts. So I made some crab legs. My thing is, I have no problem with eating my food like this because, a lot of the times this is how I eat my food, and people will say, "Oh, you're being lazy." I feel like this is to help me to appreciate food and not be so greedy. But at the same time, the way in which that I perceive that if the food doesn't taste that good to me, then I have less of an appreciation for it. And that is how I feel. But I know what healthy foods do for me, and I appreciate what it does to my body. So it's kind of like purposeful eating and not necessarily eating for pleasure. When I was a vegan, I learned that. And I became obsessed to the point to where, you know, foods that I used to make, it used to taste like straight dirt. I would use so much of the herbs, you know, because the herbs were serving a purpose for me. And so I wanted to get those herbs into my body. And then I just noticed, I'm just like, damn, everything just tastes like, it just tastes like dirt. My vagina, smelled like a plant, you know. When I first was on my vegan journey, my vagina smelled like kale. That's all I ate was kale. And my vagina smelled like that. That's not really attractive, you know. I didn't like the way it smelled. But I really do kind of feel like I'm being called to experience my food in this way. I feel like I actually can taste the potato. You know, I love dipping my potato in my butter sauce. And I love creating my butter sauce. And I never really realized that I'm not tasting the potato at all. I'm tasting the butter sauce. I just like that the potato can hold the butter sauce. Kind of weird. I love my Brussels sprouts though. I feel like I'm tasting the Brussels sprout for the first time. I love my sauces. Mm. Okay, so I have my crabs. I made another. This is my last crab cluster. So I absolutely have no problem with eating the crabs. Like, I actually enjoy tasting the meat. I don't have any tools. I don't want to use my teeth. My teeth are very sensitive. I love crabs though. I will work for it. I will work to get to it, honey. I love it. But even now, because I don't usually eat crabs without butter either. Why do we use seasoning? Why do we use seasoning? Why do we use seasoning? Okay, to flavor our foods. But why do we flavor our foods? Is it because we really don't like these foods? When I was a vegan, I used to study a lot of classes for individuals who would teach the psychology of veganism. I couldn't necessarily keep up. I just had so many questions. You know. Sometimes I wonder, after we finish eating, are we supposed to go to the bathroom right away? Is it healthy if it digests quickly? Is that a bad thing? If it comes out quickly, are we digesting it? My favorite ASMRs to watch are the crab boils. Everybody seems to have the same love for crabs as I do. It's like the way that they eat it, it's just like an orgasm, and then they sit there and they make the noises and they're just like, like they're having sex. And I just be like, ooh, I know it's good. I know it's good. It makes me want one. It makes me want to go out and get a boil. They take time out to show you how they make it. I like the ASMRs better than the mukbangs because, the ASMRs, they don't talk. I don't mind the talking, but I mean, It's kind of like when they're talking, you know that they're not paying attention to the taste. But when they're just sitting there eating, and then they're just so indulged within what they're eating. It's just crab. It just has such an addicting taste. There are so many different crabs out there. I feel kind of guilty because I'm a Cancer. Cancer rules the crabs. And I'm just like, I'm eating myself. If I could actually eat myself, I think that I would. I mean that sexually, and I mean that literally. I like the snow crabs because they're so easy to break with your teeth. I like all crabs. I can't even lie. You know, I've never had the king crab before. Oh my god, people eat that shit like they eat it like it's just so big. You know, it be so big, and they just it's like they eat it. They gotta open their mouth so wide, and they just put it in. They just put so much of it in, and then it's just like, you know, because I know not all crab meat tastes the same. Like the blue crabs don't taste like the snow crabs, you know. Like I know all of the meat tastes different. I want to taste the king crab. You know, that shit is like $300 to get a whole king crab. You know. They have like you could get like 2 legs of the king crab for like $30. I think it's 30. I don't know if it's $30 a pound or if it's $30. I've always wanted to taste it, but I didn't take the opportunity to do it. I wasn't even thinking about it. I just be so worried about my priorities. That's not a priority. So, you know, it slips my mind. It's not a desire either. So it definitely slips my mind. It just tastes so clean. You know, we have a lot of seafood restaurants around here, and a lot of individuals go fishing, you know, at the beach, on the pier, you know. There are a lot of restaurants, you know, on the borders, the boardwalks, we'll say. And I mean, that's where they get their food. So the number one fish is the croaker fish, you know. But it's just like, I don't really know what the croaker fish tastes like, because to me, it just tastes like the salt water. I remember years ago, um, I was struggling for food, and my grandma, she quoted me a Bible verse about if a man fishes, he'll never go hungry. So, you know, I asked my son's father to teach me how to fish. So, he taught me how to fish, and when we were having money issues, we used to go fishing. And of course, I had to cook the fish. I feel like no matter how much I tried to get that saltwater taste off the fish, I could never do it. And I'm just like, what does a croaker fish really taste like? Then they got saltwater fish. I never had saltwater fish is at the Jamaican restaurant. I never had it before. I've had tilapia. Tilapia just tastes so. I love tilapia, but there are different times to where the tilapia just doesn't taste natural. But I heard that tilapia is actually farmed. I don't know. It's pretty weird, you know. They got spider crabs. They have vampire crabs. They have horseshoe crabs. I'm just like, a crab is a species, and within that species, it has so many different types. Dungeness crab, king crab. God. And then I think to myself, if I ever came face to face with like a huge crab, I guarantee he would eat me. And I probably would just surrender because I would deserve it. I know it's kind of weird to say, but I mean, I just feel like I just have so many questions now about a lot of things, especially around food. Um, so I have my soda here. I have been drinking water, a lot of water with lemon, lime, and cucumber. You know, I have been very consistent in that. I think that I can have some soda. I don't drink soda very often. I don't even like root beer, but it's my son's favorite soda. This is actually his personal bottle, right? 2 liter. This is personal bottle. I love watching other people eat though. I feel like I don't know. I like watching big people eat. I don't and I don't trust a small chef. I don't know. I think I have a bias. That is the bias that I have with the physicality of things. You say that you're a chef, but you're not fat. Like how well do you really know food? You know, and it's just like, come on, that's unintelligent. Because how are you gonna sit there and say that somebody doesn't know food because they're not fat? Just because you love food doesn't mean that you're fat. A lot of the times, individuals are trauma bonding with food. But it's just so comforting, especially when you see like couples, like fat couples, eating together. It just, I don't know. It just looks so sweet to me, you know? Um, it's kind of like we bond in this way. We have the same bond. We have the same trauma bond, but we don't trauma bond to each other. But through this mutual understanding, this is where we trauma bond. I don't know. I like, a lot of the ASMRs, to what they call them like rude eaters. You know, people who eat, like, I don't like to see people eat extremely fast because I'm just like, you're not enjoying your food. You know, a part of, when they first start the video, it's kind of like there's this pleasure that I pick up, but then it's like after a while, it's kind of like you're actually full and you're still stuffing your mouth. Now it's making me feel sick. You know, I don't like to watch people eat a whole bunch of candy and sweet stuff, because I'm thinking about, oh my God, you're fucking up your teeth, like, I have teeth missing, so I mean, I think that if you have good teeth, you should appreciate them, okay? But I love the candied fruit. I love that. That's like the perfect combination. Juicy, sweet, and crunchy. Mm. I love watching them eat the oranges, the tangela, I think that's what they call them. Oranges and strawberries. Ugh. I've seen people eat aloe vera. I don't know how people eat aloe vera. It's just so slimy. Like I don't like okra. I'll eat fried okra. But there's actually an African dish, okra soup. And they eat it with the fufu. It just looks so slimy. And I'm just like, I can't watch this. I can't eat that. I can't. Okra is actually so very good for you. I can eat it fried. That's the best I can do. It's just so slimy. You know, if I feel like when it comes to something slimy, I just rather swallow it. Like I don't eat raw oysters. You see people just eat it and I don't know, what are they doing? Are they just sucking it in and swallowing it? That's kind of pointless. Like, I don't know, why would you do that? Do you not want to taste it? Does it not taste good? You just suck it in and swallow it? What does that do to your stomach? I don't know. I love watching the ASMRs. I like watching the big people. I like watching them eat. I like watching them cook. You can definitely tell the different cooking styles. 'Cause I'm gonna tell you, a lot of heavier people, they're not really considerate or like really like gentle with their food. It's kind of like, in a way, they're really quick to put it together, and sometimes it just comes off like kind of greasy and not fully cooked sometimes. um, or sometimes it's overcooked. But with some individuals that I watch cook, is you can tell when somebody cooks with love. I'm the type of person to where I can taste it. I can taste when somebody cooks with love. It makes me happy. It's just like, you know, it's just, it's like my head smiles, you know. I don't know, I'm not the best cook. I don't really like cooking. I like to be fed. I like to eat. But if I have to cook, then I will. And if I have to learn, then I will. I will admit, like, I don't want to eat any more heavy meals. I watch a lot of like Asian food, you know. It just kind of seems like a lot of Asian dishes is healthy, and it just, a lot of their food looks pretty. It looks colorful. It looks light. You know, my grandmother was Asian. She is Asian, so I mean that's kind of how she does things. You know, well, she's a minimalist. So, you know, she doesn't like the gluttony. She doesn't like the greed. She always was very strict when we were younger. We would go swimming in the morning and we had our water bottles. We would go to the market and she would get us these honeysuckles and she would get her meat for her sandwiches. Oh, my grandma was the queen of sandwiches. Oh my goodness. She would use different types of bread. She used to use this brown bread with like oatmeal on it, and I'm just like, what is this? She always had the fresh produce on this, you know, like pickles and cucumbers, lettuce with the meat, the tomatoes. She would put like salt and pepper, and she would give us a small portion of chips and water. You know, when it came to snacks, she was very strict with snacks. She would always check how much sugar snacks had in. Like, we couldn't have anything over 17 grams of sugar within our snacks. Or cereal. Oh, when it came to cereal, she would have like the cornflakes, the Cheerios, not the frosted cornflakes, not the honey nut Cheerios, just regular Cheerios and regular cornflakes. She would put raisins, grapes, bananas in our cereal. Oh, orange juice and water. She was the queen of sandwiches. I I never learned how to make her sandwiches. I know what she used, but that's what I'm saying. Like, food is kind of like, I could use her ingredient, but it's not going to be like hers because of her energy, you know. You ever eat somebody's food and you just feel heavy as fuck? You know, it's like, damn, why I feel so heavy? I'm so full after two fucking bites, you know? Mm. Well, I guess that I'm gonna have to start experiencing my food differently since I'm, on this journey now. I'm kind of looking forward to it now because these potatoes, I'm just like, damn, I never actually really tasted a potato. I mean, when I was a vegan, yeah. But when I was a vegan, I was kind of programmed differently. I haven't been a vegan in years. I think I stopped in 2020. So it's kind of like I can't even remember what a potato really tastes like. It makes me feel like, like I'm in a country somewhere. And I mean, things are limited. But food is food. And as long as it's good for you, does it really matter if it brings you pleasure or not? If it's purposeful. When it's purposeful. Well, I can easily say no to that because I've already practiced that. I've already been a vegan. I eat for pleasure because, I mean, sometimes I don't feel truly happy. I'm not in a happy, loving relationship. So deep down inside, there's this sadness. And I don't want it to become a void to where I become depressed. I don't want to eat like I'm a bottomless pit and then one day I wake up and I'm like fucking 300 pounds. But then I think to myself, in your mind, does does love fix everything for you? And I can sit here and say yes because I want to say yes. But in all actuality, I don't know. I've never actually been in love. I just always felt like I was. Because in being in love, it's kind of like it has to be reciprocated. I don't think that I have ever been in love with anybody. I don't think that anybody has ever really been in love with me, other outside of, you know, when I say being in love, I'm talking about in the physical sense, not in the sense of a creator. Because whenever we are creating, we are in love. So when we are creating with someone else, we are in love together. We are creating together. But I'm talking about the human love. I feel so sad. It's just this question of, do you want to be in love? And it's just like, well, of course. I feel like that's what I've been working towards. I've been putting in a lot of hard work for it. There are so many insecurities that I used to have about myself as a lover. And I've had so much time to practice with someone that I'm not even in love with. So, you know, I took that on as a challenge. I did that purposefully. So, when I get with someone that I am in love with, to me, it'll just come easier. Is it the food doing this to me? Hmm. I don't know. Alright. Well, just gonna wrap it up there. I mean, that's day 3. So until we meet again.